No, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you can't hear
Let
me.
me have a look, see whether I'm doing something wrong then. Uh, Now try.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
No. I'm not sure what I am doing wrong.
What about is it in your headset?
Earphones?
Yeah. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
No, still can't hear you. Let me just see whether my Skype might be robbing the. Uh, I'll hang up and come back in again, chat.
Okay, great, great. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can. I have to try it. I've swapped over to Chrome. Clearly, Safari was not very happy.
Yeah, I should put in the note that Chrome is somehow Google and Google. So
I was going to say it's not surprising that it's the one that works, really, is it?
yeah.
Safari seems to be a bit hit and miss with this. Are
So
you well?
how you doing?
Now I've lost you. I've lost you now.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can see the indicator. What have I done? Oh no, that's my fault. Ignore me. You're back now. That's my fault. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
great, great.
are we
So
it?
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Well done for starting the community. Really
Oh,
impressed with it. I have to say, I'm involved in a lot of communities. This is by far the most positive community I've been in. There doesn't seem to be anybody who's bad mouthing anybody else, and it's just generally helpful.
yeah. I think it's a good mix. Everybody's done a nice job at being polite and kind, and then sometimes it's hard to understand people's you don't in text you don't always get their inflections or
Yeah,
and there's also it's an international community, so um, some people may come across as curt. It's because there's a language.
yeah.
uh,
Sometimes there's a cultural and language thing, isn't there? Sometimes,
right, right. And
but
so
that's okay, I would think.
I was in kind of a lengthy back and forth with somebody, and you know I wasn't trying to be contradictory or rude in any way. I didn't agree with his assessment of what he was hearing, and he was coming across a certain way, and it was probably it's all minor. Nobody's taking offense by it, but you know.
Yeah. Your other chat, did that go very well?
Yeah, it went really well. There's a 3-hour broadcast somewhere on the forum.
I haven't looked at it yet. I saw the link, but I haven't had a chance to look at it.
There was a lot of tips, a lot of it's worth. I actually watched it again. I usually hate watching myself again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was there once, but I actually there was it was entertaining the second time, which has surprised me.
good, good. Are most of the members US or are they kind of spread around?
The members in the group,
Yeah,
I actually think it's kind of international. I mean, I would say it's probably mostly United States, but
Yeah.
a lot of UK members in here. Um, yeah, it's a good. So where are you at?
UK, so about half an hour north of London.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's what I kind of promised that I would do more more broadcasts that
UK friendly time.
UK friendly time. Yeah. So
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think the what, so what time is it with you then at the moment?
right now it is 10:22 a.m.
AM, right? Okay, right. So we're 6:30. I think probably the, definitely about around this part of the world. I happen to work from home today, but normally I wouldn't be home at this time. So
Right.
probably I imagine in future or probably later will be a bit later will be slightly better getting people back on time. I suppose
Okay. So
the other thing I imagine also is and I suppose it depends whether you have kids or not. Because of Friday evenings, I've got 4 kids, so Friday evenings would tend to be more difficult for me just because I won't get permission from the boss, as it were, for obvious
yeah.
reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 2 kids still at home and 2 that are out of.
Out of reach,
Yeah, they.
but not out of wallet, I'm assuming.
I don't think that ever goes away.
Yeah, mine are all still here. My oldest is 15, so they're not away yet.
Yeah, I have here at home. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. So,
Okay, right. And the other two, boys and girls as well? Or?
the boys from previous marriages, or previous marriage, one's almost 30, and the other one
Okay, right.
is 20, 22, 23.
Okay, oh, very good.
Yeah.
A good spread then. We got them all in very closely. There was a 5-year period basically where my wife was pretty much pregnant for. So, we've got 10 to 15, 4 of them in there.
And that's where all the gray hair came from.
This is I've just come back from skiing actually. Normally I'm shaven, but I didn't shave when I was skiing, and because we've only been skiing 3 times. This is the 3rd time, and I didn't shave. But now if I shave, I'll end up with a two-tone face, so I'll have tan and white. So I'm waiting for my face to balance out again before I but the grey hair is definitely from having 4 boys, I have to say. But there you go. Anyway, there you go. So well, clearly it's only us at the moment, but so because I have a JTV, a Tyler JTV.
Yeah.
With the Helix, and I mostly run a local thing in the church, so I play in the church basically, and then just for pleasure, but don't do any other gigs apart from that, mostly because of time. But and less of I wouldn't call myself a lead guitarist. I'm not a speed freak. I'm more of a kind of a chords and fiddling type person, as it were.
Right.
But I've been acoustic pretty much all my life, and only got back to electric in the last couple of years as well. So Helix is a real revelation to me and a real help, because I don't have room for lots of amps and that kind of thing. So to be able to just pick my amp and then plug it in direct into my desk in the church is fantastic, I have to say.
Yeah.
But one of the things that interests me actually, and you said to me before that you can do this, is I use MainStage quite a lot, and I use it a lot, but need the ability to be able to switch between, whether it's repeating a chorus or whatever and that kind of stuff. And the Helix can control that. Is that right?
Yeah. You can send MIDI out through the USB. I don't have a use for it, so I really haven't. Hey, Brad. I haven't really had any reason to dig into that yet.
Right.
And different DAWs, I think, have different ways of doing it. I did see that Christian Paul Arnold had a demonstration on YouTube about how to hook it up with Studio One.
All right. I'll have a look at that then, because
Yeah.
I've got a little MIDI, so a little Akai MIDI controller I use at the moment, fingers, but obviously it's a lot easier if I have something on the feet because I'm
Right.
playing at the
Yeah.
same time.
It's pretty much you go in and you can program the pedals just to do exactly what you need it to do. It sends all the MIDI signals and shouldn't be a problem to integrate it. I've seen it done, so it's there to do.
I should give it a go then. Give it a go.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you had any issues at all with your?
I haven't, but I'm not as progressed as probably most people on the group. No, because about 50% of my stuff is acoustic. I downloaded a Taylor IR. I'd never heard of IRs until it came up in the channel actually, and it's a Martin I use, but actually it made quite a difference. So I keep most of my sounds aren't heavy on the distorted side. They're more kind of delays, choruses, flangers, that kind of thing. With maybe a bit of break up every now and then. It's in a Catholic church and they're all very conservative, so I have to bring them along bit by bit, as it were, small bits, so I don't frighten people. Because the minute I break into the distortion, the organist will come after me, as it were, and doing all sorts of god awful things. Hang on 2 seconds, John. Will you get that phone? But so most of my stuff, as I say, is accompanying myself and a choir singing, as it were, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I use an RC 300 a lot as well, Boss loop pedal. So I'll do a lot of stuff in regards to layering both guitar parts and harmonies and that kind of stuff, and then bringing them in and out and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So one of the weak points for the Helix for me is the looper.
Yeah, I've never been able to get the loop, because even with the HD 500 I had, the looper, I could never figure it out, to be honest. I could never figure out how you undo things, and because the Boss is laid out very, very nicely. It's got 3 sections. I can put guitar and bass on the first thing, then I put a vocal on the next thing, then put a harmony and bring them in and out as I want, and really nicely. But I've never been able to get with Line 6's loopers at all, actually.
I think it's a weak point. It's got some utilitarian use. My issue that I found is it doesn't. I think we lost him.
Oops.
Back. Hello.
Yeah, it looks like he disappeared here.
Well, let me. Oh, there he is. There he is.
I'm back. Sorry.
So I think it's got a utilitarian use. But my issue is that when you play the tones into it, what you get back is muddied up a bit. It doesn't sound as crystal clear as what you laid out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So if I play like 3 chords and I magically find a way to actually time it right.
Yeah.
Yes, I can play over it. But everything seems to like it's only about not volume per se, but it's like about a 90% replica of what, and this is just my experience of what I heard when I laid it in there.
Right. Because the beauty of the Boss for me is that it all it is repeating what I output from the Helix. So I have control, and it seems to my ears, and by no means I've got perfect ears, but to my ears, it tends to give it, exactly what comes out. Notwithstanding, as long as you've got the volume set right, obviously, but and it works really well from that point of view. Because I did consider at one stage as to whether I should patch the loop station actually into the Helix. Just take a 1/4 inch out that goes from the Helix to the loop station to a DI and then into a desk, as it were. But then it dawned on me, actually, if I patch the loop station into the send return, then all I'm doing is I'm using up processor power that I probably just don't need to do.
Not much processor power for the loops. But one of the nice things is if you put it in, is it a stereo looper?
It is a stereo looper, but the system in the church is basically mono, basically.
Okay.
Because the reason I wanted to patch it in was it attracted me that I could then take the the XLR, the DI out effectively straight to the desk from the Helix, and then just take the DI box out of it altogether, as it were.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I concur on that. You should be able to put it in a loop, and then you can move the loop around wherever you want. You'd also loop ins and outs differently, so it's pretty the loops in the Helix are really useful tools that I like to use. But yeah, the looper for me is yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't do it. Have you had much experience of putting vocals through it?
I did a video on it, and I also used to own the Voice Live 3.
Yeah, the TT Helicon one.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic unit. It has a really good looper. Some of the issues I have is because of the interface is
Not
pretty.
great.
It's kind of like editing on the HD 500 was okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's the same
Okay.
menu driven, and the guitar modeling in the Voice Live 3 is it's okay.
Was just something. I'm not interested in the ones that, because they all seem to now produce voice and guitar bit, because clearly the Helix covers all my guitar needs. So actually, I just want something that does the voice bit.
Yeah. So what I actually you can use the Helix, but it's not. It's kind of like if you took the Voice Live, the guitar modeling is but the voice stuff is great.
Yeah.
Well, the Helix is just the other way. The guitar modeling is fantastic, but using it as a vocal thing, it's not designed. I mean, you can use them. So here's what I recommend. If you just want the voice, TT Helicon, and it looks awesome. It's called the Performer V. It's a little device that goes right on your mic stand.
Okay, right. I'll have a look at that.
And it has little buttons on top that you can bring in things very quick. So it's right at your mic stand level. You just go boop, 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 boop. You can add stuff. You program it away. I think you can even program it with your iPhone.
Right.
Hey, Virl. How's it going, Virl?
Somebody else trying to join us here?
Yeah, his camera's not working too good. And he's got a little static. Somebody's got static. I think it's Virl.
Yep.
There you go. Virl's
I used the TC Electronics Ditto 2 looper and have experimented with that some. I got this one. I think I purchased it through Amazon. Actually, is where I got it.
Because they just released a Ditto 4 as well, I think.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard tell they released it.
Which is basically two twos put together, as far as I would think of things.
They just took their original Ditto and have kept cloning it and adding to it. But the 2 works really well. I can lay down layers on it, and I can record a guitar track and then go back and play a bass line over the top of it and just keep adding to the layers. And you can even, if you can even back the layers out. Oop,
right.
I lost it. If there was one that didn't come out quite as you wanted it, you can actually delete just that layer and keep the others below it. So you can keep stacking them up.
I should be back in 1 minute. Sorry.
Oh, sounds good.
Johnny?
So, Virl, can you hear us? So, yeah, I like the Helix very much. What are you guys using to amplify your Helix? You're going straight to the desk.
Well, at home, I just use. Actually, I just have a stereo set of PA speakers. I can't remember who they're made by, but in church where I do the perform stuff, they'll just go straight into the desk. But what I'm considering is getting a full range speaker. I can't remember what you call them now. The either the Line 6 ones or the equivalent of. There's been a
Right.
lot of recommendations around the Friedman, I think, on the channel, hasn't there?
Yeah, there's been a lot for the Friedman. Now the Friedman's pretty expensive. I actually opted to get the Firehawk 1500, and I know that it's the modeling on it is a little redundant. However, I've found an interesting way of using it. I can actually, through the sends and returns, actually use some of the effects that are not in the Helix in the Helix.
Oh,
before
really?
the amps. Yeah. So what I do is I go out of, I go into the Helix for my guitar,
Yeah.
and then I immediately have a send that I don't pass. I pass zero signal, so I don't send anything down the line yet. I just literally have a send that goes out to the front of the Firehawk, right? And then I put all the effects that I would like to use on the Firehawk before the send return on the Firehawk. And then out of the return, I go back in right after the send on the Helix, and I bring the signal back in. And then I go through the amps, and then I go actually the return after the amp, and it goes back into the input of the Firehawk, or not the input, but the return of the Firehawk, and then all the signal goes into the main in on the Firehawk, and that allows me to use the features of the Firehawk that are not in the Helix, and it sounds amazing, and it can do wet, dry, wet, and it's stereo, whereas all the other ones are not going to be stereo.
And there's a fire. I always assumed that the options in the Firehawk were just a replica of the Helix, but clearly they're not then.
No, they're the lower model of the Firehawk FX processor.
Right.
But there's actually more effects than the Helix has, and I
Alright.
imagine over time there'll be more effects for the Helix. But like auto wah, there is no auto wah on the Helix,
Okay. All right. I didn't know that.
and also auto volume. I forget what the it's actually got a name, but auto volume or auto swell. There's actually a swell feature that's in the Firehawk that's not in the Helix, and so you can actually use that swell with the Helix amps.
Okay.
But
That's
again,
interesting.
yeah, and again, it sends wet, dry, wet, so you get a stereo signal, and the Firehawk is really loud.
It's huge.
But you can turn it down.
Yeah.
So that's what I went with.
That's interesting. How much is the Firehawk? Does anybody know?
$9.90. The Firehawk 1500 is $9.99.
Dollars.
Dollars, yes, dollars.
Okay.
Pounds, I don't know.
Well, it's probably 600 quid over here, I imagine. Something like that. What are other people using for amplification?
Yeah, Brad, what are you using?
Well, at home here, I have my GT8. I don't have a Helix yet, but I run it into a Carvin stereo tube amplifier. It's 100 watts per, well, it's 50 watts per channel, 100 watts if you bridge them, into two Carvin 212 cabinets, which gives me a really sweet sound. Gives that tube amp sound. But at church, I'm running straight into the soundboard. I go through a direct box straight into the house mixer system.
Right.
So they don't really afford us the space to run amplifiers there. So it's pretty straight, which is really a challenge because getting the sound through our hearback system to sound like what I hear in my headphones through the hearback system and what they're reproducing in the mains is really a tough challenge because our system reproduces a lot of low ends, so they have to crank the highs up on my channel because I keep complaining I'm colliding with the bass player, when I get down on the low notes. So it makes it quite a challenge to play direct like that and get a good sound.
So one of the
So
things,
much of our playing is just expressional, and I change my tones based on the moment in the song. So, I change pickups and I change tone settings, throughout the song. So, I want to hear in my headphones what they should be hearing on the floor, because otherwise, they're not really getting the feeling that I'm trying to express out to the audience.
that sounds like to me that their system is being adjusted on their end bass heavy. It is in my estimation. They probably got some of the bass cranked up, or they're running 15s. What size of speakers?
Oh, well, you should see the speaker system. We have 4 speakers suspended from the ceiling. And this isn't a real big church. It seats maybe 150 people, maybe. And so it's not a very big room. And then on the floor up on the stage, we have these gargantuous, huge powered speakers that are probably 2,000 watts per speaker.
Sure.
And each one has massive speakers in it, and a horn and a tweeter section in the speaker, but they're really bottom heavy as far as frequency response.
Yes. So what I'm saying is they probably have 15-inch speakers in some of them, and the issue is that that 15-inch speakers are very flubby. In most cases, like a lot of arrays, the audio arrays are using 10-inch speakers, multiples of 10, because they just sound better. They reproduce the sound better, more accurately. So what you're running across is you may be getting in the way of the bass player, but it's because those are bass heavy tones.
So the whole sound system. What I've tried to encourage them to do is put an equalizer in the line that feeds those 2 big speakers and tune back some of the low end on them.
Right.
They haven't done that so far, but I'm trying to encourage them to do that.
But with the Helix, when you get the Helix, here's what you can do. You can actually get a different signal than you're sending. So you can send one that like if you go into the global EQ, you can actually switch and send only to XLR a different EQ, and you can actually EQ out some of the bass there, and then what you're hearing is what you programmed, but you're taking some of the bass away before you even send it out.
Send it to the main board.
Right.
Yeah. That would be one thing I would love to be able to do is we have a hearback system, so each one of us individually has a small mixer at our station where we're playing from, and we have headphones that plug into that. Well, I'd like to take that headphone jack, run it into one of the ports on the Helix, and just plug my headphones into the Helix phones jack and be able to hear it clean straight from the Helix, and then mix in the sound from the hearback system.
You could take it into the auxiliary in the Helix, couldn't you, I think?
Yeah,
well,
that's what I think.
The auxiliary in on the Helix, though, it drops the input like 10 dB or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could take it into a return, and then you could actually take the sound that's coming in put it in its own path, and have it go to the headphone for monitoring other people. So there's all sorts of ways to go about it.
So it becomes its own little mixer system.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trick with our system is getting the soundboard people to be trained well enough to be able to accommodate the musicians up on the stage. The fallacy that we have, and I imagine most places suffer from this, is we're having the lead singer goes back and tells them how to set the soundboard up.
Sorry.
And so she's very partial to hearing the vocalist. Or one rhythm guitar player that we have. He's the pastor's son. So they usually turn him up really loud and turn the vocalist up really loud. And there's 4 vocalists. And so the rest of the instruments get drowned out. We end up either... I get told many times that they don't hear me at all. People ask, "Are you up there playing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm playing." "They hear me fine?" And they hear back, "Well, we couldn't hear you out on the floor." Because... And I've told one of the people, I said, the person that's at the soundboard should have control of the soundboard. You shouldn't have anybody from the platform telling them how to set the sound there. I typically do that. And it you know, people are partial. They want to hear themselves usually.
I have to say, in my church, we don't have sound engineer or anything. I have a desk at my feet. I hope for the best, and then look at people down in the congregation. If they're wincing or waving at me, I know there's something wrong. That's
pretty good.
So the fact that you have a soundman is I'm very jealous.
Well, there's usually a staff of 2 or 3 people back there because they're running video and lights and all this stuff.
Wow.
But
I'm very jealous.
It can be a good thing, but it can be a very bad thing because most of our sound people are not trained sound people. And so they know nothing about this technology they have sitting in front of them or how to control it or even what the people on the platform need to have and how to set it, because most of them, if not all of them, are musicians, so they really don't know what you want.
Yeah, I can understand that.
You know, the best sound people I've ever worked with have been musicians. They always work out.
But it's also a skill in itself. You know, managing sound is a skill that people need to learn. It's a complete. People assume it's just a bit of just balancing left, right, and center type thing, but it's so much more than that, and it's understanding it's understanding things like you said, Chad, that things like 15-inch speakers tend to be a bit floppy, and that you have to account for that then when you're dealing with the sound.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is. It's definitely a skill, and I've spent just about my whole life listening to music. I mean, like lots. I mean, I'm clear back to when I was a kid, years ago, and tone is something that's really important, and I'm really sensitive to flubby sounds and
muddy
sounds, and it just you hear all these nuances. I go to play listen and sometimes play at a jam night, and how they mix it is vitally important for your enjoyment. If I can't hear the singer just right, or I can't hear the lead guitar, or I can't hear the drums are too late, it's a balancing act, and it's balanced for the room, it's balanced for the kind of speakers you're using. Are you playing so loud that you actually need to have one of the shields, the plexiglass shield up?
Yeah, but it's also about you can't sound like a band unless you can hear each other.
Right.
You sound like a bunch of individuals, and particularly if you get in most cases, your job there is around supporting the vocalist, because actually, it's about the song. And if you can't hear what's going on, you can't bounce off each other. You can't play with each other. You end up just playing in your own little silo, and that's not enjoyable for the people listening to it, I think.
Oh, exactly. And I went up and played with the band, and the way they have the backline set up, all of the tone is hitting me. My tones are hitting me in my calf, and everybody else is so loud, and I'm like playing like this, trying to hear. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable even.
It really is, and it sure is a lot of work for them. But I think I've been to a couple of churches here in the Fort Worth area that the troubling thing here is you get sound people that are mixing these things that you've seen or heard these people driving around their cars with their stereo cranked up to 150 dBs, and all you hear is the boomy of the kick drum and the thumpy bass, and that's really all you hear because it's so loud. Well, I've seen sound guys in churches that mix a live sound like that, where you hear the kick drum and the boomy bass, and you can't hear anything else. And in one church, I went up to the sound guy after church. I said, you need to turn that kick drum up down about half of what it is, and cut the bass back, because it was so loud it was painful. I mean, it was like somebody slapping you in the chest with a bat, because it was so strong. And I think they're getting people who aren't professionally trained, and my philosophy is mix it like a CD sounds, because in the studio they get a very even mix. You can hear everything, but these guys are mixing it like they want to hear it in their boombox in their car, with their subwoofers cranked up real loud and stuff, and that's not how you mix live sound. It's just not, because you can ruin the listening enjoyment for everybody, and you can steal the wind out of the people playing the music, where they can't even hear themselves or what's going on around them.
I agree. It's a delicate balance to get it right. And if you're hearing something excessive, whether it's high pitched or whether it's low pitched, or whether your mid is accentuated in some way, or decentuated and scooped or whatever, it's not right. It has to be balanced through all the spectrum, and our ears are only supposed to get a certain level of pleasant tone. So anything beyond a certain spectrum, high or low, it becomes unpleasing and washes other things out. And then another thing happens with musicians is getting in each other's way sonically. For instance, the bass player can get in the way of the guitar player, or actually vice versa. Like a guitar player, if you've got a good bass player, you probably don't need to play the full chords. You don't necessarily need the two top strings. You can play all your chords down on the higher strings to stay out of the way of the other player. And then if two guitarists are playing the same chord, or one guitar could play an inversion of the chord, and another guitar could play the standard chord or whatever, it's going to sound sonically better than two people getting in each other's way. And if one of them, say one of their strings is just a little off, and you try to play the same chord, it's not going to sound as good as if the other guitarist was playing the inversion per se.
Yeah,
Right,
no, I agree.
Harmonic of it. Yeah. At our church, we have an acoustic guitar player, and I think the guy's tone deaf, because he can't tell when his guitar's out of tune. and it's out of tune a lot. And he plays a lot of the open chords on that acoustic down the low end. So I typically play more bar chords up on the higher registers.
Yeah.
And stay away from where he is. Because, I mean, I've never been one to have to play just all open chords because I learned all kinds of chords everywhere. And I still learn chords all the time. To be able to play in different places and sonically stay in a pleasing range that adds to the sound and not just replicates say, everybody playing an open G string or a G chord,
Right.
or open C chord, I'll get
Exactly.
up high and play, in a bar chord or inside chord or whatever. It's a different tone. A lot of times I'll play a 2 chord in there while they're playing like the major chord. I might play a 2 chord to add that airy note in there.
I'm going to have to drop out in a minute, but can I check? One of the things that seem to be very common on the forum is in the global settings about rolling back the top end.
Okay, yeah, that's not in the global setting.
Oh, is it not? Right.
No, I would do that in the cab.
Right. So whatever cab you're using.
Yeah, take and put the low, like if you're getting a little flub, take the low cut and put it up about 120 hertz,
Yeah.
and then bring down the high cut of the speaker cab down to about 6,000. And what you're doing when you do that is you're actually replicating the actual frequency response of a physical guitar speaker. That's
right.
There's obviously little fluctuation, but that's kind of the
Yeah.
range of a guitar speaker. That's why guitar speakers do not make really good, music reproduction devices, like putting your MP3 through. It works, but its frequency response is limited.
It's narrow.
Yeah, and so that's what, if you take in all your cabs and you do that with them. And then, there's no hard fast rule to do that. That's because they give you use your ears for that.
Yeah.
But that will replicate it. And so if you were to do that same thing in the globals, like that, what you're doing is you're actually killing all of the other studio effects. You're limiting those as well.
Okay, I see what you mean. Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So just on the cab itself then.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. That's
A
really
lot
good.
of your reverbs and stuff are going to be on your higher end of the sound spectrum. What it's really going to sing with a reverb or something, you're going to hear it on the higher spectrum of the frequency response. So if you're cutting all that out, your reverb's going to sound terrible.
Okay.
Good
tip. Thank you. That makes, because I was about to go to the global settings and set it, but I clearly won't now. I'll do that in the cab. That's fine. Which actually means that for when I'm putting the acoustic through, I don't need to worry about that at all, because I don't put the acoustic through any amp as such. I just put it through whatever effects I'm using.
Right. Well, and if even on the Taylor IR, there is a high and low cut. So if you're finding something there that's not as pleasant as you'd like you've got a little bit of a flub going on, you could bring up that response as well.
Okay. Lovely. I'm going to have to drop out because my kids are back. But Chad, thank you very much. And good meeting you both.
Nice to have you.
See you again at some stage.
It's nice to meet you, Alan. Have a good day.
I will. You too. Thank you.
I'm going to take this phone call.
Okay.
Hello, this is Chad. Hey. Perfect. Yeah. Probably picked them up maybe today, but maybe Monday morning. But you know what? I probably might swing by today. Are you open Sunday? Oh, okay. Yeah. What's your hours tomorrow? Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Okay, bye-bye. little business.
Oh, no problem at all. I kind of figured. That's just fun. Got to pay the bills. Got to
Oh
pay for
yeah.
those helixes.
So how are you?
Oh, so far so good. Um, Everything's going hunky dory. I'm playing daddy daycare. I stay home and take care of our foster child since I'm not employed. So she's at nap right now. Gives me a little break.
Yeah. Let's see. Hang on.
One thing I've noticed on the forums is the apparent difficulty that people are having in getting the upgrades loaded into the Helix, the the different new
Yeah.
updates. And it seemed like Line 6 could do something to help remedy those problems because not everybody are technical people like you and I. So, they're musicians. They just want to make music. They don't want to have to fiddle with how to make this computer talk to this hardware device.
Yeah, the thing about it is, you're probably aware of this, recently, Microsoft and even Mac have done some things that have thrown burrs in people's works, so to speak. Like, for instance, the smart screen and the different screening things that is in Microsoft products. I had a customer yesterday who is trying to install what they call like a neat scanner. It's NEAT brand. It's a pretty popular scanner.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, try and load the software on a Microsoft system. It comes up and it says that this software is not certified or something along that line.
Yeah,
And it won't let you install it unless you have this little workaround that you can do, and it's very frustrating. Well, it's the same thing going on here is what Line 6 is combating, and in a small way I understand it. And then there are, I think, the Helix is going through hardware software changes, and they're getting better and better. But I had an issue because of Smart Screen on my PC, but I was able to work through it with this new version. But hey, Burl, everything working, Burl? Little static going on, Burl. But so I look at it and go, is it a Line 6 issue, or is it
issue?
Compatibility? Because, well, I mean, okay, this is what people need to understand, and I think this may take some heat off of Line 6 a little bit. Line 6 has the job of creating something that works with Mac operating system A, operating system B, operating system C, operating system D, and the various hardwares that go with it. Now, Mac is more stable on their hardware. They control all the hardware. So their Intel hardware is their Intel hardware is their Intel hardware. And their software works, and drivers usually work really good. But then you have the different systems that El Capitan has had some very bad across the music industry issues with their USB USB driver platform, so to speak. Anything that works with musical instruments was having some issues here and there. That being said, yes, there are things that I think that Line 6 is working on. This is a beta piece of software, so there's going to be some issues that come up. But I can see, if you look at the Windows side, here's what they're combating. You've got Windows Vista Windows Windows 7, Windows 7 of another flavor, Windows 10, Windows 8, 8.1, the whole gambit, and then you have 5,000 models of HP with different iterations, and 5,000 models of Dell, and
Mm-hmm.
5,000 models of Toshiba, all with similar but little different things. And then if you look at the combination that goes into these different boards, you have Realtek for audio, then you have some other chipsets for audio, then you have one of the most important subsystems of a computer is the video. You have so many different. You have Intel chipsets. You have ATI Radeon chipsets, and then how many iterations of those are out there,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you have the NVIDIA, and how many of those are out there, and you take all these thousands of components, then you add what kind of software you have on these things.
Oh yeah.
You have an complete unlimited amount of software. Now, get ready for it. Let's throw in what other kind of spyware and crap is loaded on these things.
Garbage.
It's a wonder anybody can load anything on these things. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so
It really is amazing that any of it even works.
yeah. So I guess what I say is, kudos to Line 6. I can't build something that they did. I've been a tech for 25 years. I don't have the knowledge to work with the USB stack.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get in there and fix it. I still can't. I've got a brand new Mac Mini, with 16 gigs that I can't reliably use with the Helix.
Well, one of the things I've seen on the forums is like when it'll brick the Helix or stuff like that. Now I don't know if it actually is bricking it or if there's a way to,
But
reset it back to factory and bring it back up. But
I don't believe
people say that.
I don't believe that they're bricked. I believe, and I'm not digging on anybody, but I believe that it's in 90% of the cases user error.
Oh yeah.
So
Some order there
no
or
offense,
something they're
no
doing.
offense to anybody, and I'm here to help you. But I know that I have salvaged. I know that somebody contacted me with what they thought was a bricked system or wouldn't update or wouldn't connect,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to log on their system, straighten a few things out, and a good majority of it is because they've got spyware and things taking up their resources,
Oh
and
yeah.
any number of things.
If
So
they don't have good virus scan software, it's like you're just looking to mess something up. Have you been able to actually remote into some of these people's systems and be able to
yeah,
resolve? That's what you're doing? Because
uh-huh.
I use TeamViewer for such things with some of my friends and stuff that have me support their computers.
Yeah, I've been using things like TeamViewer for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Um,
So that works really well. So if
yeah,
you can remote into them and straighten these things out, that's a great thing.
yeah, and so and again, so is it a Line 6 issue? Well, sure. I do believe that there are things. I do believe that there are things. Um, Line 6 can do to improve, and they're working on that.
Yeah.
A lot smarter guys than me are in there working on it, probably as we speak right now.
Well, it's an awful sophisticated piece of equipment because you basically got a computer with specialized sound hardware on board, and on top of that, if you can get that to work, because you have a display screen, so you're having to manage the display. So this thing is a full-blown computer, and if you can get the sound hardware to do what you want in that it's able to do the kind of things the Helix does, is reproducing and effects and all these things. That's a pretty tall feat all to itself. But then
Right.
you want to take and incorporate a USB connection into this thing so you can hook it to an external computer. And, that's an order of magnitude there again, adding complexity to it. And all the different effects loops and different things that it does. It's pretty massive. It covers a lot of ground as far as technology goes.
Right. And then, asking it to do, the amazing things that it does. There's basically even now, right now, I've got it hooked to my one of my PC laptops, and I don't have any problems with it except for one. On a very extensive patch that I create that the expression pedal uses, it changes like maybe 5 or 6 different effects, parameters.
Oh, wow.
So as you use it, it changes 5 or 6 things to make it do a certain thing.
So when you use the expression pedal, you can have it not just change just one effect. You can have it change a whole chain of them?
You can have it change up to 8
parameters and 8 different effects processes.
Yeah, well, just 8 parameters. Even if you say you have 3 effects, but you have 8 different things you want to change on those 3, you can change those with that. You can also assign those same things to a switch if you don't need it to change gradually. You can actually have it go on and off and have those same 8 effects simultaneously change during your use, which leaves a very, very unique set of things that you can do at one moment that you can't on other things. Other effects processors, you can't. I don't think you can do that much.
Alter that many parameters simultaneously.
Right. You might. I don't know for sure, but I think it's pretty much of a game changer. And so you have 10 buttons, and you can like you got a Variax. You have 2 controllers on the Variax, and then you have up to 3 expression pedals, and each one of those, if you were to not have on-offs, but even if you assign on-off to something, you can still assign a parameter change. So, for instance, say you've got a delay, a reverb, a delay, and an amp, and distortion effect. And when you want to turn the distortion on, you also want the amp to go ahead, because the distortions may be a little bit muddy. You want to turn the amp presence up and the tone up, but you also want to bring the delay in the mix more. And then you also want to turn the reverb down a little bit, maybe. You can use that, do all of those on that one button press.
Wow.
So you can turn your distortion on, raise the presence, add more delay, and turn down the reverb with a push of one button.
Now that the button you're referring to is the expression pedal button, or is it
any of the switches?
Any of the switches. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I've looked at the expression pedals. There's 2 varieties. One that has a button on it, and one that does not. Apparently, is there a need for the button, or is there?
Well, the one that's on the Helix itself is has a button.
Right.
I never engage it. I find them very hard to engage, so I just don't do it. I actually added a second expression pedal so I can have one do one thing, one do another. I don't have to turn it. I don't use the button to turn things on. I'll just assign whatever turning on I want to do just to a foot switch.
Foot switch. That's what I was wondering exactly, because
Yeah.
I was thinking that usually the buttons on those pedals are not easily engaged or disengaged.
You gotta get on them.
Yeah, you got to really push
Yeah,
hard on the toe.
and I don't
So
want to do that. So
exactly, that's me. I don't have time for that.
yeah,
Basically,
I just want to click and go. So with that being said, you can add 2 more expression pedals to the standard Helix, and you can have 3 expression controls. And if you had a Variax, you could have the volume knob, and I think the other knob can both be a controller. So the volume and tone. So
right.
there's plenty of control.
I was wanting to get the rack unit, and I think you can add 3 expression pedals on that one, but have at least 2 with the volume.
You have 3. You have 3 on the Helix.
So
you can have 3 on the floor.
3 on the Helix. Okay.
Yeah, because you have the one that comes with it,
and then the other 2.
You can add 2, so you still have a total of 3.
3. So that was one of my goals, and to be able to change, say, the amount of distortion on the fly that's actually being applied, because there's parts of songs that I want more distortion than others, or less distortion, vice versa. Yeah, or wanting to add more delay in portions of the song than not. When you get into the quieter portion, you can put more delay in there where you get a real airy, deep sound. And when you get back into the heavier parts of the song, you can back that out a little bit, so you're not muddying up the mix,
right,
on the floor. So there's some things I'd like to be able to control more real time as I'm playing. And I find your comments about the looper in the Helix interesting. Since I have this Ditto looper, I think that's
I'd keep it.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't part with it. I love this thing. It's fun to play with.
I think the Ditto looper also takes the blank spot out, can it?
The blank spot. What do you
mean? If you miss and you've got a dead spot, I think the Ditto looper can take that out.
I
don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the greatest at timing, so I hate using loopers.
Loopers are hard to use. It really is difficult to do, because if you just don't hit that thing exactly at the right time, your time's going to be off, or you'll have a gap.
And I know that there are loopers out there that take that and can fix that, like the TC. The TC Helicon Voice Live 3 looper, I believe I had that feature where if you're not quite right, it'll kind of make it right. It'll sync it.
Oh, really? That would be nice, because if you've ever seen Phil Keggy, you can find him on YouTube all over the place, but he plays acoustic guitar and he sings, and he'll be a one-man band up there with his loopers and stuff going. And it's incredible what he can do, layering those loopers and stuff. He's just becomes a one-man band.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing with the. I could work on getting better with the Helix looper, but it's pretty limited as far as time goes. Which in a loop, I guess that doesn't totally. You don't need a whole lot of time necessarily.
No, you really don't.
However. The tone I put into it is the exact tone I want to hear out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to adjust level, that's different. If I need to adjust how loud it is, that's different. But the tone, I need it to be identical. And the Helix is not. And I don't believe, from what I remember, the HD 500 wasn't either. It's
the
like
Ditto is whatever you put into it's what you're going to hear back out of it.
That's what I want. That's what I want to hear.
It's very exact. It's a very clean reproduction. It's CD quality recording, so it does a very good job. And if you mess up, it's going to repeat that mess up every time. The only downside to them.
Right.
It'll reproduce your mistake very accurately. Funny things. Well, I remember the days when we didn't have any of this stuff. Oh my goodness. That's, I saw that article, that little video clip of Frank Zappa on here, and I thought that was so well said. I don't know, was that posted on our?
I think somebody posted in the. I had it on my timeline, but also I think somebody else posted it in the group.
It was so good. I was totally impressed by him because that's been my philosophy of playing. I play what I hear or feel at the moment every time, and people, you may come up with a baseline of what you might play, but I honestly, when I sit down and pick up my guitar, I really don't know exactly what I'm ever going to play. It may be very spontaneous at the moment, and I'll know the chords, the chord progressions and stuff, but exactly what I will play and how I will fit it all together is very spur of the moment at that time, how the feel of the music's going. I just really loved his what he said about that. It was very good.
Yeah.
I've never been a Zappa fan. I'm not, but I do know who he is, of course. Every guitarist probably does, but I really liked how he put that.
I think I've talked about it before, but like Frank Zappa, Tom Waits, those individuals are kind of very influential in music. They actually have been very influential in music, but they can be a bit of an acquired taste.
Yes, it is.
I actually like some of Tom Waits' stuff, but some of it's really weird. Yet I still find some of it interesting, but some of it I'm like, I don't know.
You wonder where that came from.
Yeah.
I guess he understood what he was trying to do.
Well, yeah, and then like Frank Zappa, he was definitely influential. I'm not a better guitar player than him, that's for sure. So I got no place to talk, but it's just not my preference.
Right.
Of course, that's okay. That's why we have so many. I mean, my preference is Gary Moore or Joe Bonamassa. I like Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was influential, and I can't play anywhere close to what he does. He's got classic tunes, and they're awesome. But in my book, I mean, technically skilled players, there's definitely more technically skilled players. He was good in some. Most of its bandmates parts. Yes, I agree with that, Verl. Yeah, he was a little that video was video that he put out was a little not quite right, because I think what he means is his solos, but the melodies were he wanted it this way. So musically, he knew what he was doing, but his solos is what he's talking about. What came out of his heart.
Very ad-libbed at the moment. And like you said, a lot of people hear what they played it thousands of times or hundreds of times, so that it's very repeated. Which is a good thing, but I mean, I've auditioned for bands and stuff and had them say, well, we want you to play it exactly like the record plays it. And I said, well, I'm not that player then, because I play from my heart. I'm not going to get up there. Why should I repeat exactly, note per note, what somebody else has done? That seems redundant. Just go hire them or put the record on if you want to sound like that. Don't bring a band in here and want it to sound just like the Eagles or whoever. I think that's kind of ridiculous myself. Let the band be what the band is.
I think I agree. I think you definitely have to include the hooks of the songs. They need to be right, but
Right.
yeah. And the thing is if you're going for exact duplicate, or you're trying your best to do the exact duplicate, it's never going to sound exact because you're not that person. And so it's always going to be off anyway, so you might as well just make it your own a little bit. I mean, you have to follow probably the same feel, and
Right.
that's not even necessarily. There's no hard and fast rule. You can take a feel of a song and totally make it a different feel, and it's like, wow, that's a new song, although it's the same word. It's weird. It weirds people out, but in a good way.
But you know, you can end up with some really awesome music that way if you take. I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm not really much of a listen to a lot of secular music, but say "Sweet Home Alabama," just because everybody knows that song. If somebody else does it and adds a new little twist to the way it sounds or how it's done, um, that may, there's going to be a portion of the population that's going to really like that. Even though it doesn't sound exactly like the way Lawrence Skinner did it, or it, it's going to appeal to a certain group of people. So I think that's true in any musical area, if you will, because you have that freedom of expression, and no two people play alike. I mean, you've heard of Jack Thamarat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him do some of Eric Johnson's stuff, and he was pretty close to Eric Johnson's style, but there were portions of what he played that were a little different, and it doesn't make it wrong. He sounded good, but he did it in his own way, and that's what makes him him. Eric Johnson's Eric Johnson, Jack Thamarat's Jack Thamarat. Um, Phil Keaggy is Phil Keaggy. None of them play exactly the same. They don't sound the same, and you don't need them to sound the same. I like Jack's style because he's very exacting. He may be he's more exacting a player than Eric Johnson in his style. Um, Eric Johnson is his own player and in his own right. Phil Keaggy is his own player in his own right. Phil often does things that you hear two recordings and he played something different this time than he did the original time he played the song. He's so creative in his mind that each time he plays it, he may come up with something different when he plays. He's very much like Frank Zappa was saying uh, when you hear him. Because I've heard Phil Keaggy twice live. I've talked to him, met him, shook his hand. Um, he's an awesome, awesome, awesome player. You'd think there were more people playing that guitar than just him.
Right. 1 second.
And I don't know a lot of the players out there. Um, I enjoy my small little genre of people that influence me, and when I come across a new one, such as Jack, um, and I actually saw him, not saw him, but became aware of him because of the Facebook, Line 6 Facebook group, and really have enjoyed he's influencing my playing right now because I'm learning some new techniques and chords from him. So he's impacting my style of playing, which is what I want. I don't want to sound the same all the time. I want to keep expanding and adding to what I do.
Well, it's interesting. My playing, when I pick up the guitar and I put my tones on, I sound like me. I
Exactly.
mean, that's what I actually want. I want to be my own. Want to sound. Uh, um, I want to sound like me. Uh, but yet I still want to sound good, and I also want to sound similar to ones I listen to a lot. And you almost can't help it if you're influenced by certain things to start to sound like it. Like if I go through and listen to some of my I've got some songs that I put on YouTube, and I go through and I listen to some of the older ones, and there's definitely a Santana ish feel to some of my songs, and then at other times, then there's kind of a Gary Moore feel. Um, Wish I could play and have the chops that those guys do, but I can muster up some reminiscence of a feel of other people, but I still have me in there, and I've only been playing for 5 years, so
Yeah. Uh, um, well, we all should sound like ourselves. You don't want to sound exactly like everybody else, and nobody does. I don't care who they are.
right.
We all sound like some. We all have the players that influenced us, of course. Um, but like you, I like to come up with new sounds, chords, voicings of chords, and how they sound together. I've been messing with one, and when I get something done, when I get it well enough to be able to record something, I'm going to record a little piece and put it on my website that I just posted out there. But um, it it has a new chord in it that I just learned, and the chord sounds really nice with the other chords. So I'm going to try and work up something with that. Um, the
Hi,
thing,
Han.
the website I posted, I have a little song I wrote and recorded on there. It was my first. I was really trying to learn how to use the DAW in my computer. I used Mixcraft 6, which anybody needs a DAW. That thing's awesome. It's easy, easy, easy to use, but it's very capable. And so I was really trying to learn that, but I came up with this chord progression and started playing it and recorded it, and then recorded a lead over the top. But there was a drum track I put in there. It was just a straight drum track off. I downloaded a drum machine off the internet and played a little simple drum beat so I would have some timing. Oh, looks like my little one, who's probably asleep in my bed right now. But I recorded that little song and had some fun playing with it. It's certainly not refined or studio quality recording, but I had fun doing it. But it's kind of a, I can't say it's a real broad sampling of the techniques, all the techniques I know how to play, but it was fun to do. Has some
Yeah,
good, nice sounding voicings with chords in it.
yeah. I think that you know, musicality needs to come from the heart, and
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
you know, some days I just can't. My fingers don't work, and I can't get nothing into it. I'm not getting a feel, a response from it. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
created some tones on the Helix. I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. That's awesome. And I come back the next day and go, oh, that's horrible. What is
What was I
that?
thinking?
Right? And then in other times I've had, I just can't get this tone right. And I'll leave and come back the next day, and I'm like, oh, that's actually really good. What was I thinking?
Exactly.
Hey Bart, how's it going, man? Welcome.
I
Well,
do that in my stuff too. If I record
Bart,
something,
if
I'll
you
give
can
it a
hear
day
me,
or
you
two.
use Google Chrome, but you probably can figure it out. This is Doodles. Doodles the rockin' dog.
Doodles.
Doodles the rockin' dog.
Wow. Ours is named Penny. She looks very similar, although she's half Chihuahua and half miniature pincher.
Yeah,
She has very long legs, a very deerish pincher looking face.
yeah, she's all Chihuahua.
Yeah, she's cute.
So
See if I can get Penny, come here. She's all snuggled up under the blankets on the bed. So you call her and you see the bed start moving around. Come here.
hey Bart, can you hear us?
Come here.
Yes, I can. I don't have a camera, but I hope you can hear me.
And we can hear you just fine. Chime in anytime you like. I haven't had a chance to watch your video, but I'm going to.
I hope you enjoy it. It's probably more in depth than most videos, but that's me.
Hey, that's okay. So give us an overview of what you were doing in the video so we all know.
Well, we all know that DSP is something that you have to be really careful about, and most multi-amp patches that I see kind of create completely separate paths with its own amp, its own cab, and everything, and that you're kind of doubling up on certain blocks that you can share.
Right.
So what I use is controller assignments to assign multiple parameters to one foot switch, like drive, channel volume, bass, to create kind of two channels within the same amp block.
Hold on one second, Bart. I got to answer Hans. Hans, no, we cannot see you or hear you. Use Google Chrome if you can hear us. Use Google Chrome, and then you have to give permission to your camera and microphone at the top. Okay, go back to that, Bart.
Sure. Like, for example, you know, the a Fender Tweed sounds really good dirty and really good clean. So what I'll do is use channel assignments to kind of have a dirty clean foot switch that switches that amp to two different models. And then I'll do the other things necessary. For example, if you put a clean boost into an amp that's overdriving, you don't get a volume lift because
Right.
it's already compressing. So to even the patch out, if I have a clean boost going into an amp that I could switch between clean and dirty, I'll also make sure that I lower the gain on the clean boost when the clean amp is selected. So you're able to kind of use channel assignments to create multiple amps within a single amp block. Then the second strategy is to have path one going down into path 2, and split the first path into an A/B situation, so you can actually add a second amp in the same line. And it's easier to see in the video, but ultimately you can get 4 amp sounds in a single patch and share reverb, share all your delays, share all your crunch and drive pedals, share your modulation effects, and have 4 different amp sounds. And it's really, really super flexible to use it that way.
Yeah, I like it. That sounds good. Hans, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, you can see me. Okay, so I'm going to put this towards the screen. I want to see if you can see this. Is this one, or is this one like this? Oh, I might. Yeah, I see. I see an image now down there of you.
It says Hans there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing, Hans. I'm just seeing I'm seeing that. Right. That was what I was seeing. But yeah, and then also just make sure that your settings are set correctly. I have my camera set here, and my microphone is my Bluetooth brother, and then there, and I save it. Other than that, I don't know if we can get any more assistance than that. I would hope that you'd be able to get on and talk, though. Any rate, so a real flexible patch. Did you put the patch up on the Bart? Did you put the patch up on the custom tone?
No, I've got to do that tonight.
Okay.
I'll add that to the post. It's a patch that doesn't completely clean up, but the clean sound is one where if you roll off a little bit, it's totally clean, and then you can get a little bit edge of breakup.
Right.
I also find that the Interstate Z is probably one of the few amps that you can really get a consistent, very clean, very dirty sound from.
Right.
Without getting too fizzy or tubby. So that Z is really nice if you want a 2-channel setup.
Yeah, the Interstate Z was one of my first favorite ones that I had until I get the Matchless. The Matchless does pretty good too. The #1 Matchless. The third version of the Matchless doesn't clean up as well as I'd like. But
Yeah.
it's
I usually have trouble with top end, that crossover distortion stuff when I go too heavy on the gain on those Matchless amps, and I don't know, that's me, or I don't like to use a lot of top cut.
Yeah. Now, where would you, if you were going to use top cut, where would you use it?
I usually do a little at a time approach where on the speaker cab I'll go down to maybe like 15 or 14, and then I always have an EQ block at the very end of every patch where I might bring it down a little bit more depending on the speaker. Like headphones and PA might be different. So every single patch I have, I start it with a compressor so I can just round out for different guitars, and I end it with a parametric EQ where I can add top cut or low cut depending on where I'm playing or what I'm playing through.
So do you do it mainly in the cab itself?
Just a little tiny bit in the cab itself, and I think Frank, I say his name right, Richot, described that it's a little bit of a softer roll off in the cab, so it doesn't completely kill all the top.
So, yeah, you might not have been here when I was talking about that. What I do with the cabs, sort of on purpose, depending on taste, and it's a taste thing, but I look at the cab just like I would a speaker, guitar speaker, and a guitar speaker. You're fine. A guitar speaker. Its frequency response, every guitar speaker out there is maybe a little different, but they're in the range of about 120 hertz on the low side to about 6,000. So I guess what I'm saying is if you go in and you make those adjustments to that, you're not affecting any of the highs that you hear from your effects. You're only affecting it on the guitar speaker emulation part. That's it.
What I do find, if you take a really good mic and mic a cab, and then you look at the spectrum analysis, there's still higher harmonic content. So one thing that I noticed is that there's sparkle on top of what the speaker itself is rated for in a real world scenario. So I don't like to lose that air, but I'll dial it out at the end of the patch.
It is also a a touch and a feel scenario. So
Yep.
I sometimes I only do that what I've said. I only do that if there's an issue. Like if I'm playing and I get there's kind of a flubbiness to it, I'll dial it up to I'll try the low cut down down to 50, and I'll start raising up until that flub just goes away. So I'm not always doing the 120 and the 6K, and then oftentimes it depends on the scenario. If I'm playing here and into the computer direct, I may not do any of the high cuts at all. So I agree with you. I think that's a good. I kind of what I do is when I give recommendations, it's the and no harm or offense here. It's the dummy quotient. You're having a really big issue with. It sounds like an ice pick. Well, do this.
Roll it off.
Does that help you? If that helps you, great.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's a question, just because I don't know how you play most. I'm a basement warrior, and I'd say 80% of the time I'm not playing with drums or anything like that. I'm just playing to hear myself. And I find that I always want more cut when I do that. But if I'm playing to like a drum track or like to a song, I always take that cut away because it helps me punch through more. So I always find like if I'm playing with a drum track or playing with the track, I always want all of that top end back. And if I'm just like practicing alone and listening to my guitar tone, I always want to roll it off really, really aggressively. That tends to be where my world is. I don't know what you guys.
Yeah. Okay. So I see what you're saying. Typically sonically for you to stick out each instrument. I saw there was a graph that was put in the group at one point where it showed on a spectro analysis kind of a graph where things like cymbals and all that reside, and in your bass and in your the bass drum resides over on the low end, and the hi-hat and the cymbals are up here at the high side. And it puts the guitar in to get the most
Middle.
cutting through. It puts it about 3,000, anywhere between 2,500 and 4, I think. I mean, I'm going off sort of memory, but you want to put it into that zone, and that's the tones that stick out in a lot of songs for leads and guitars, like the Dumble. The Dumble, everybody loves the Dumble. I like the Dumble tones especially, but I looked at some of the Dumble recordings that are on the internet, and what was interesting is there's a 3K hump, and it's really a mid boosted scenario. So while I understand you want that sizzle, and if that's working for you, then stick with it. But like in a mix on doing a CD or something, they can get in the way of each other.
No, you're right. You're right. I think one thing I love about the Helix, just to bring it back to the Helix, is it very, very, very natural to what real amps do. And I'm not good with modeling. I'm okay with amps, and I find that a lot of the models don't have an overwhelming top end, which I love. It does like what I expect real amps to do, and I find that if I'm playing with some hi-hats, just a little bit of that helps everything kind of blend in, almost like if you hear those old great recordings where the guitar sound bleeds into the drum mics a little bit.
Right, yeah, I get you.
You know, right. And so like when the hi-hat, in between the hi-hats, you get a little bit of that guitar tone, almost like a natural ducking. And nobody does that anymore because the way bands record themselves now is everything's all isolated.
Yeah.
But in those old recordings, if you just get that little bit of air in between the cymbals when the drummer stops, it sounds really good. And the Helix does that. I mean, I think it's a fantastic recording tool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'll put myself on mute. I've got to got to do a little bit of work, but I love being in here. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. Glad you came.
Good to meet you, Bart.
So, hey, Hans, how's it going? Yeah, see, you got your camera going. I think he went out of the room.
Yep, I think he stepped out for a moment. He's AFK.
So,
My puppy's
it's really good. Listen, every one of these broadcasts that we're doing just get better and better. A lot of little nuggets and help in here.
Yeah, a lot of techniques and stuff for recording and things. I found it hard to play, not hard, but it's easy to play live, but getting a good sound live is very difficult for people who take these devices from their home into a live environment, because they set them up using maybe these small powered speakers and stuff, and think, oh, I'm going to sound like that when I get live. No, they're not, because now you're playing through 12 and 15-inch speakers through PA systems with thousands of watts of power and a frequency response that's enormous. And then you've got the dynamics of the room that they're playing in. I think a lot of people don't take into account what dynamics are happening off the walls, ceilings, and floors, and chairs, and the people in the room, and things like that.
Well, yeah, like
how sound reacts to those things.
Well, for instance, I like a lot of reverb on what I do here.
I prefer reverb. I like a very wet sound.
But in a live setting, it don't work so good in most cases.
Well, you hear people listen to Johnson's stuff, Eric Johnson's. He uses a lot of reverb, lots of delay, even live. And it sounds very, very good. It is part of his signature.
No, I'm not saying you don't use it, but you have to tame it a little bit when you get live. Otherwise, you sound it. Here, I can sound in the mix, and I can even add a little more wetness, and it sounds okay because I'm only hearing me. But you go out and about, and a lot of you're starting to get underneath of the sound. You should pull back a little bit so you can stay on top. And that's where I like the hey Hans. That's where I like the Firehawk, is I can do the wet, dry, wet, and I can actually control the amount of ambiance and still hear that guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Hans. Hans, can you hear us?
We're not hearing you, sir.
We're not hearing you. Microphone's still not on, but we can see you.
I saw where he muted it and unmuted it. It's muted.
Yeah. It's unmuted to talk, Hans. No, still can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. Still. Oh, sorry.
Oh boy.
Really would love to hear you. How do you have it? Do you have what kind of mic are you using? And Bart chimed in about the reverbs. He says,
yeah,
the repeats seem to fight everyone else, especially long ones. I totally agree. So yeah, kind of like what I was saying.
Yeah.
You have to tame it quite a bit.
Said he's using the mic and the camera.
Yeah.
Let's go into the settings.
Tap your camera. Hans, tap your camera. Hit it. Yeah, we're not hearing it. There's no sound coming from that. Do you have another microphone source?
Might need to go into this camera settings and see if that mic's not muted in the camera setup software.
Oh, sounds good. Glad you came. We'll have other ones. Where are you from, Hans?
Oh,
Holland.
awesome.
Well, hello, Holland. We're going to have
Yes,
more.
hello,
We'll have
Holland.
more. Just so you know, they're not that expensive, but I don't know if you can see it. Hang on, let me switch cameras. I use this Brother. It's a speakerphone, and it allows me to not have to use headsets. So there's no. It's kind of a directional array kind of a thing where it doesn't hear its own self. It's voice canceling. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're about $99.
Oh, that's expensive in my situation.
So, anyway, this has just been an informal little broadcast. I thank everybody for coming, and so glad to have everybody here. Thank you, Bart, and thanks, Brad, and thanks, Hans, and Alan. Alan was here earlier. Alan, was it Alan? Let's see, Alan, yeah, Alan was here, and Viral. I'm glad you were here, Viral. Hopefully you'll get your camera and microphone situation straight, but I'm glad you were here. Thank you, everybody, and this rebroadcast will be posted in a little while, and you can watch it, and hopefully we'll get more people on the next time as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank y'all very
Brad.
much. Enjoyed it.
We'll talk soon, guys.
All right, Chad. Thank you for everything.
Bye-bye.
See if we